Have you ever felt a deep affection from someone, even though they've never said a word? A fleeting glance, a small gesture, a pause that seems meaningless but keeps you wondering. Could they be hiding something? Love, when it's real, isn't always loud. It can choose silence. It can live quietly in unconscious actions, in unspoken care, in a glance that lingers too long in a crowd. Carl Jung, with his deep insight into the human psyche, once said that when two personalities meet, if there's a reaction, both are changed. Love is the same. It's a silent upheaval, an invisible bond that can transform a person from within, even when no words are spoken. In today's video article, we'll explore the subtle yet powerful signs that someone might be deeply in love with you, even if they can't or haven't dared to say it out loud. And maybe, through that, you'll realize someone might love you more quietly than you ever imagined. 1. They unconsciously mirror you. Have you ever noticed that someone around you seems to start becoming more like you? Not in an obvious way, not in a blatant, awkward imitation, but in the little things, very little things. They pick up a word you often use. They change how they laugh. They sit the way you do. One day, you see them holding a book you casually mentioned one forgettable afternoon. That's not a coincidence. That's mirroring, an unconscious reflection of deep affection. Carl Gustav Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." When someone loves you, especially in silence, especially when that love is hidden or unacknowledged, their subconscious begins to act in place of the heart. Mirroring is a psychological phenomenon where a person starts to mimic the behaviors, expressions, and gestures of someone they feel emotionally connected to, especially in love. It's not a strategy, it's a reflex born from the unconscious. In social psychology, this has a name: the chameleon effect. We unconsciously become a soft copy of someone we care about because the brain is trying to create emotional resonance, a way to belong. Here's a subtle, real-world example. A woman often talks about her quiet mornings with a cup of tea. Sometime later, a man who's always been a coffee drinker starts searching for that exact tea, not because his taste has changed, but because he wants to experience the world the way she described it. He doesn't say a word, but that act, that's love without language. Or the story of a patient in Jung's analytical therapy room. The man suddenly began bringing a notebook to sessions, taking notes, something he had never done before. Why? His analyst, a woman, often wrote down her reflections to better understand her inner world. He wasn't aware he was mirroring her habit, but unconsciously, it was his way of getting closer to the person his mind had grown drawn to. And when mirroring appears in those who are typically emotionally restrained, it's a sign that their heart has crossed the borders set by logic. A dry, no-nonsense leader suddenly shows an interest in Eastern philosophy after working closely with a colleague who often quotes Lao Tzu. An introvert begins to open up in conversation after spending time with someone they admire. Small changes, but in truth, they're inner stirrings, looking for a way to surface. In Jung's archetypal system, mirroring can also be a sign of anima and animus, the feminine in the man and the masculine in the woman. When a man encounters the ideal image of his anima in a woman, he may become softer, more sensitive. In contrast, when a woman is drawn to the animus in her unconscious, she may become more assertive, decisive, or contemplative. In this sense, love becomes a mirror reflecting the missing parts of the self. Mirroring isn't intentional, and that's exactly what makes it trustworthy. Because when someone unconsciously copies you, it means you're living in their mind so deeply that they don't even realize it. True love doesn't always arrive as a confession. Sometimes it's just someone quietly becoming more like you in the most natural, gentle, and profound way. 2. They avoid you at the most unexpected moments. But love doesn't only show up in moments of harmony and reflection. Sometimes it hides in the strange silences, when the other person suddenly pulls away, not because they feel nothing, but because they feel too much. You're in the middle of a conversation, and suddenly they go cold. You walk in, and they abruptly turn away. Just when everyone else is connecting, they step back. It leaves you confused. Do they dislike you? Have they lost interest? But the answer might be more complicated. They may love you more than they're ready to admit. In analytical psychology, Carl Gustav Jung referred to repressed feelings and parts of ourselves we're unwilling to face as the shadow. It's the space within the psyche where we bury fear, pain, desire, and feelings we're not ready to make public. In Ion, Researches into the Phenomenology of the Self, Jung wrote, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. Avoidance in this context isn't indifference. It's the unconscious act of a mind trying to protect itself from being exposed too much, too fast. When real feelings, especially love, break through the wall of reason, not everyone knows how to deal with them, and instead of stepping forward, they retreat. Not because they don't want to get close, but because the feeling overwhelms them. Imagine a man who sees himself as rational, independent, and emotionally in control. He doesn't believe in the kind of love that makes people vulnerable. But then he meets a woman who doesn't have to be striking or overly affectionate. Just a few shared glances, a few brief conversations, and something begins to stir inside him. Suddenly, he starts acting differently. He avoids one-on-one chats. He goes quiet in intimate moments. He creates distance on purpose, not because he feels nothing, but because he feels too much. Jung once said in Psychology and Alchemy, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Avoidance is one of those absurd behaviors, but from an analytical perspective, it's completely logical. A person who isn't ready to confront their shadow, the part of themselves holding deep emotions suppressed by beliefs, history, or old wounds, will do everything they can to hide it, and sometimes they hide by stepping away from the very person they love. Here's another real-life example. A woman who once endured a controlling relationship. In her subconscious, love is linked to pain and losing herself. When she begins to feel something stir with a colleague, a safe, kind connection, she starts to avoid him. She stops replying to messages as quickly as before. She declines what seem like harmless invitations. She becomes cold. To an outsider, it looks like she doesn't care. But inside, she's being flooded by emotion, buried under layers of self-protection. Avoidance born from love often comes with conflicting behavior. They may pay close attention to you from afar, but withdraw when you get close. They might listen to you more deeply than anyone else, but pull away the moment feelings become too clear. It's the ego's instinct to shield itself from pain, rejection, or losing control. Jung called this the conflict between the ego and the shadow. Inside that person, there may be a quiet war. One part wants to move closer to you. The other fears that doing so would shatter their carefully managed inner world. The paradox is that sudden distance can be a sign of deep, real emotion. Genuine love, when not yet fully understood, often carries a powerful fear. Fear of being exposed, fear of being hurt, fear of losing the current connection if the feelings aren't returned. So next time someone unexpectedly becomes distant, before you assume they're indifferent or cold, ask yourself, are they avoiding you? Or are they trying to hide something very real they haven't yet found the courage to admit? 3. They tease you in a childlike way. But repressed feelings don't just make someone retreat. Sometimes they drive them to do the opposite, to get closer, but in disguise, hidden behind laughter and seemingly harmless jokes. Have you ever noticed someone who keeps teasing you, calls you a quirky nickname, joke around with you in front of others, just to see how you react? You might have thought it was random banter, just part of their playful nature. But sometimes, beneath those harmless jokes, lies a feeling they haven't dared to name. Carl Jung once emphasized, what you resist persists. Repressed emotions don't disappear. They find other ways to surface. And one of the most common forms is humor, light, childlike teasing that acts as an unconscious strategy to move closer without triggering the defense systems in either you or themselves. In this context, jokes aren't just small talk, they're emotional camouflage. When someone feels something but isn't ready to show it outright, they look for safe ways to approach. Teasing, light bumps, and ambiguous flirting, just enough to be present, not enough to get hurt if the feeling isn't returned. Here's a real story. A college student once shared how, for an entire year, a male friend constantly teased her about her short height, calling her tiny mushroom, pepper seed, or calcium-deficient legs. She thought he was just being funny like everyone else. Only after graduation did he confess that every joke had been a way to mask feelings he hadn't dared to confront for fear of ruining the friendship. In developmental psychology, especially through Jung's analytical lens, childlike behavior isn't merely a lack of maturity. It's an expression of the inner child, the part of us that remains untouched by time. When love emerges, especially unsteady, uncertain love, that child speaks up. It reaches for jokes, harmless words, as a way to express emotion without risking rejection. Another perspective, Jung believed that when we're drawn to someone, the self, the whole of who we are, starts pulling us toward inner truth. And if the ego isn't ready, it finds a loophole through indirect behavior, like teasing or clowning. Love, when repressed, sometimes escapes through laughter. Pay attention to the signs: repeated jokes, random trolling, strange attention they give only to you. These are signals. If they don't act this way with anyone else, if you're the sole target of their humor, then you might hold a very special place in their mind. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, the most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. Teasing, in this case, is a symptom of inner conflict not yet resolved. They like you, but they're not ready to accept it seriously. And once the feelings become clearer, once it feels safe, the laughter might give way to honesty. So next time someone keeps teasing you, don't be too quick to assume they're not serious. Maybe, behind those jokes, there's a real feeling trying to reach you, gently, awkwardly, but sincerely. 4. They remember things you've forgotten. If teasing is how they hide emotion behind laughter, then remembering the small details you've shared, especially the ones you've forgotten, is quiet but solid proof that their heart has never strayed from you. Not because they try to remember, but because you, naturally, have become part of the flow of their unconscious. You once casually mentioned a childhood snack, a simple pastry your mother used to make on rainy afternoons. Another time, you named an old song you used to listen to on sleepless nights when your heart felt hollow. You didn't emphasize it. You didn't think it was something worth remembering. And then, you forgot, but someone didn't. They didn't bring it up right away. Maybe weeks later, maybe months. One day they ask, "It rained the other day, did you make your mom's pastry again?" Or they quietly play that song you once mentioned while the two of you sit in the car. You're stunned. How do they still remember? That's not ordinary memory. That's intentional remembering from a mind that's quietly keeping you in its inner world, not as a passing acquaintance, but as an emotional anchor. Carl Jung once wrote, "The psyche is a self-regulating system that maintains its equilibrium just as the body does. And one of the ways the soul maintains its balance is by holding on to things with emotional weight. Small memories that actually carry deep personal connection." In analytical psychology, this is known as emotional memory, something that transcends reason, surpasses logic, and goes straight to the unconscious. It's not that they're taking notes on what you say. They're not trying to remember. But their mind has placed you in the realm of significance. And because of that, everything you say, even once, carries weight, like a red thread, quietly weaving into the fabric of their memory, impossible to untangle. Here's a specific example. A woman once told a colleague about her love for lotus tea as a child. Just once, during a casual chat at the office coffee machine. No one paid it any mind, but a month later, on her birthday, she received a box of lotus tea with a small note. "You once said this made you feel peaceful. No flowers, no flashy card." But she cried, not because the gift was extravagant, but because it showed she had been heard, seen, even in what seemed like a throwaway moment. Love, as Jung explained, leaves its mark in the most unexpected places. In his therapy sessions, he noticed many patients couldn't recall major life events, but were haunted by a glance, a phrase, a small gesture in a long-past relationship. The unconscious always retains what holds emotional value, even when the conscious mind forgets. Someone who loves you quietly doesn't memorize you like studying for a test, but they remember, gently, naturally, because you touched something in them. Maybe you once said, "You hate being woken up early," and they're the only one who never texts you before 9 a.m. Maybe you mentioned you're allergic to lavender, and you've noticed they always avoid gifts with that scent. Or maybe you once laughed hard while telling a childhood story about breaking a tooth playing soccer, and ever since, every time soccer comes up, they glance at you first. This isn't just attention. This is emotional investment from a mind quietly nurturing a silent connection, keeping you in a place that's very private, very deep. Jung once said that powerful emotional experiences tend to leave long-lasting traces in the soul, and love, even when it hasn't been named, is one of the most intense and enduring of all. So when someone remembers you in detail, remembers things you yourself have let slip, it's a form of unconscious connection, quiet but enduring. And the most surprising part is, you won't remember exactly what you shared, but they do, because you didn't pass through their world like a breeze. You stayed in a way that's quiet, uniquely yours, even if they might not fully understand why you matter so much. 5. They look at you when they think you're not paying attention. If remembering the things you said is how their mind holds on to you, then their gaze is how their feelings try to escape, quietly, briefly, but just enough for you to sense that something real is there. There's a simple truth anyone who's ever been in love understands. When you love someone, your eyes go there before your mind does. You don't need to speak. You don't need to touch. The eyes will find them in the moments when you think they're not looking. And if someone keeps glancing at you when they think you won't notice, not with a casual glance, but with quiet intensity, focus, almost obsession, they might be hiding something significant inside. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." But in silent love, people look outward to hide what's within. And the eyes, the hardest part of the body to control, become a window to the truth. They won't look at you when you're looking at them, but you might catch them quietly watching when you're speaking to someone else, when you laugh, when you sit silently in thought. A glance that seems fleeting may carry more than 1,000 unsaid words. It holds affection, longing, and sometimes sadness for being unable to come closer, unable to say more. Imagine a co-worker who always seems casual around you, but you catch his eyes every time you're not looking his way. He doesn't say anything, doesn't make a move, but that gaze makes you feel seen. In a way only one person sees another. That isn't the look of a passerby. That's the look of someone carrying something deep and very real. Psychology has shown that eye contact creates an emotional connection stronger than even physical touch. In analytical psychology, the gaze is an archetypal expression, the ego unconsciously drawn towards someone it's deeply attracted to, because in that person, the self feels something reflected. That quiet gaze is the instinctive expression of a deep interest that words can't convey. What's striking is that they often look away the moment you catch them. They pretend to look at something else, smile awkwardly, or act like they were focused on anything but you. Because that intent gaze isn't deliberate, it's a slip of emotion, a moment when inner truth breaks through the mask of social control. Jung emphasized that what's repressed will always find a way to reveal itself, and secret love often leaves its marks in behavior, in tone of voice, and most of all, in the eyes. A silent look can be the most delicate confession. I'm in love with you. I can't say it yet, but I feel it every day, every time my eyes can't help but find you. 6. They listen to you deeply. If the gaze is where feelings escape the surface of awareness, then listening is how someone quietly welcomes you into their inner world, with respect, gentleness, and without conditions. Listening may seem like a simple act, but in silent love, listening becomes a quiet form of commitment. I'm here for you. I want to understand you. And while you speak, you can let your guard down, because I'm not just hearing you with my ears, but with my soul. Someone who loves you deeply but hasn't confessed it won't listen mechanically. They don't listen to reply. They listen to understand. They don't just retain the facts of what you say. They sense the emotions you never spoke aloud. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." One of the greatest forms of human loneliness is the feeling that no one is truly listening. So when someone listens to you deeply, they're filling a very real space inside you. And that act itself is a reflection of something very real inside them. Imagine sharing a memory that doesn't seem important, like sitting in the rain waiting for the bus, or walking aimlessly after a stressful meeting. Others might hear it and forget, but they remember. And not only do they remember, they ask you later, "You said you felt peaceful standing in the rain that day. Do you still feel that way sometimes?" A question that seems simple, but only comes from someone who truly stayed with your story rather than letting it pass. In analytical psychology, Jung described deep listening as an essential part of genuine communication between two souls. When we listen not to judge, argue, or control, but to witness another person being, we are practicing one of the most human acts, allowing someone to simply be themselves. And someone who quietly loves you will do that effortlessly. They'll remember you said you don't like crowded places, even if you only said it once. They'll notice when your voice slows just slightly, hinting at a fatigue you never mentioned. They might gently say, "You don't have to hold it all together," even if you never admitted you were. A man once shared that during 3 years working with a female colleague, he was always the first to notice when her mood changed, even in the subtlest ways. She rarely talked about her emotions and always appeared composed, but he knew when she was sad, just from the pause in her laughter, the delay in her gaze. He never spoke his feelings, but he always listened to her as if every word she said was a thread leading into her soul. And that, Carl Jung often emphasized, we don't only communicate with words, we communicate through presence, and someone in love will be fully present for you, even if they've never said "I love you." They listen to support you, without making you feel judged. They listen to hold you in their heart, in ways you might not even notice. True love doesn't need noise. It doesn't need poetic words. All it takes is one person willing to listen to you with silent, focused attention, and that love is already real. And sometimes it lasts longer than any declaration ever could. 7. They act differently when they're around you. If someone is listening to you with their whole heart is already a clear sign, then when feelings run deeper, they don't just stay in the mind, they start to slip out through behavior. When someone is quietly in love with you, they can't maintain the same composure, at least not when you're present. Real emotion, once strong enough, always finds a way to express itself. No need for confessions, no grand romantic gestures, just this. They act differently, not like they do with anyone else. Have you ever noticed someone gets awkward when it's just the two of you? A classmate who's always talkative in the group, but when alone with you, the air turns strangely silent. They fidget with their phone, avoid eye contact, and glance around the room. You may have thought they didn't like you, but in truth, that behavior change is a sign that their feelings run so deep they can't keep performing as usual. Or consider another example, a woman known for her self-control, someone who keeps her distance in all relationships. But you notice that when you're near, she softens, she talks more, she shares personal things, unscripted. Each time you show up, something in her lets go, as if you're the one person she allows herself to relax around. Carl Jung once wrote, "The unconscious constantly seeks expression, and when it is repressed, it comes forth in altered form, often through behavior. Repressed emotions always find a way out, and the most visible path is behavior. Someone who silently loves you might never admit it, not even to themselves, but their eyes, posture, voice, and everything they can't fully control will speak for them. There are small but telling signs. Someone who avoids direct eye contact, yet always knows what you're doing when you're not looking. They sit closer than necessary. They notice the exact moment you enter a room, even if no one announces it. And if you pay attention, you'll see only you make them act this way. Here's another real-world example from the workplace. A young manager who's always professional, calm, and distant with employees. But with one woman on the team, he starts acting differently, asking more questions, showing more concern, occasionally being awkward in an endearing way. In meetings, though he tries to stay composed, his eyes keep drifting toward her. No one else notices, but to someone perceptive, it's clear something inside him is being stirred, and he's still learning how to deal with it. Jung called this phenomenon projection, where we unconsciously project parts of ourselves onto others. When someone sees in you an image that touches something deep within their psyche, something they haven't yet named, you awaken parts of themselves they haven't reconciled with. And when that happens, the ego can no longer keep behavior under control. So if you've ever wondered, why do they act so strangely when it's just me and them? It's possible you're witnessing a truth they're still trying to hide from. In a world where people are increasingly skilled at managing their image, it's these unguarded changes, those awkward, clumsy moments, that are the most honest signs of true emotion. And sometimes, silent love doesn't need to be spoken, confirmed, or immediately returned. It only needs to be recognized that in their world, your presence is what makes them unable to stay the same. 8. They care for you quietly. Not grand bouquets, not flowery words, not gestures meant to impress. Their care isn't loud or obvious. It's in the small things, the gentle things, but the real things. Simple check-ins like, did you eat today? Did you sleep well last night? You look a little tired today. Is something wrong? Might not stand out to others, but if you pay attention, you'll notice. Those questions come from a very deep place in the person asking. Silent care is a form of unspoken love. It doesn't try to dazzle. It doesn't demand anything in return. It's simply someone choosing to notice you in a way no one else does. And the remarkable part is, they might be noticing you more closely than you've ever noticed yourself. Carl Jung once wrote, "A thing is not necessarily true because a man dies for it." What he meant was, greatness doesn't lie in grand gestures, but in the truth and depth behind an act. True love is the same. It doesn't need to be proven through dramatic sacrifice, but through the little things that no one else sees, which say everything. You might notice they're the first to react when you cough quietly in a room. They know you prefer ginger tea over coffee. They remember the day you had a presentation, and they texted you good luck that morning. They never say outright that they care, but their actions show that you're always in their awareness, almost instinctively. A student once told a story about a classmate. He never acted romantic, never said affectionate words, but throughout the year, he was the only one who noticed when she was absent. When she coughed, he quietly left a cold medicine tablet on her desk. When she was stressed during exams, he didn't say, "Hang in there," like everyone else. Instead, he left a small cookie with a note. A little sweetness might help, not a big gift. But that's what made her realize someone was caring for her, little by little, all along. Jung emphasized that the unconscious doesn't operate through logic. It works through symbols, images, and emotionally charged actions, which means even if someone doesn't have the words to express how they feel, their unconscious will lead them to act in meaningful ways, as a form of loving without saying it. Watch closely. When you say you like a particular food, they'll remember, not to impress, but so that one day they can quietly bring it to you. When you say you hate rainy days because they make you feel lonely, they'll message you during a downpour. Are you doing okay today? A message that might seem like nothing, but from the right person, it can warm your entire day. Quiet love doesn't arrive like thunder. It's like a stream running gently through stone, persistent, soft, unshowy. This person isn't rushing. They don't use emotion as a weapon. They simply observe, walk beside you, and stay, with no need for recognition. A middle-aged woman once shared, for 7 years, a male colleague never once confessed his feelings, yet he was always the first to offer an umbrella when she forgot hers, always the one who left her a cup of warm tea when she had a cough. She used to think it was just kindness, until the day she had a minor accident and missed work, and he sent his very first message after all those years. "I'm not used to the office missing its warmest seat." That message made her realize, true affection doesn't always need to be spoken aloud. Carl Jung also said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking." Silent love is proof of this. It doesn't control, it doesn't demand, it doesn't impose. It simply remains, steady, persistent, present in the quietest ways, yet the deepest ones. They may not call every day, but they're always the first to notice when something's off. They may not say, "I miss you," but they know you hate eating breakfast late. They may not hold your hand, but they always slow their pace to match yours. These aren't the things that grab attention, but if you stop and feel, you'll know who truly, silently cares for you. Real love, as Jung understood, isn't about display or control. It's when someone chooses to stay, with actions, when no one's asking them to. And if you've ever received that kind of quiet care, know this: you have been or are being loved in a way that is silent, deep, and real. True love doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need a grand confession, or poetic promises, or dramatic appearances. Sometimes, love exists like a breath, quiet, soft, but persistent, and it never leaves. It's the love in a stolen glance, in a small, caring question, in the kind of detailed memory even you have forgotten. Maybe, somewhere around you, someone is loving you in that way. A love that doesn't control, doesn't bind, doesn't ask for anything, except to be near you, to understand you, and to quietly hold you within their inner world. And maybe, only when you are truly ready to see, will you realize that someone has always been there, for you, in a way you never noticed before. But what about you? Have you ever felt a silent kind of love, a wordless look, an unnamed act of care, a presence that never spoke its heart aloud? Share your story in the comments below. You never know, what you write might reach a heart that feels just like yours, and help someone realize they're not alone in what they feel. And if this journey into the depth of the human psyche through Carl Jung's lens has made you feel awakened, understood, and wanting to go deeper into the unnamed layers of the soul, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because we'll be back with more stories, to listen with you to the voice of the unconscious, to touch ancestral wisdom, and to live more truthfully with our inner self. See you in the next video. We'll continue this journey quietly, deeply, and in the light of awareness. Some women live their entire lives seeking love, yet never once live as their true selves. They are praised for their sacrifice, their gentleness, and their obedience. But deep within their souls lies a silent sigh that no one hears. Carl Gustav Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." This is not some romantic philosophy. It is a wake-up call. a whisper that slices through the many layers of identity women have worn for centuries, from the obedient daughter who smiles at the right moments, to the sensual lover who knows how to please, to the perfect mother who always puts others first. These are not inherently false versions, but without awareness, they become masks that suffocate the soul. In Jung's analytical psychology, these roles imposed by society are called archetypes, primordial images residing in the collective unconscious. Archetypes such as the mother, the maiden, the lover, the caregiver serve as internal maps to help us navigate the world. But when one archetype is exaggerated or becomes a person's only identity, they lose their sense of wholeness. A woman confined to the role of self-sacrificing mother may forget that she is also a lover, a creator, a risk-taker. A woman who lives entirely within the good girl archetype often can't say no, can't express anger, and gradually learns to live in silence within herself. One of the clearest signs of this inner suffocation is the constant struggle between outer image and inner voice. Many successful, admired, beloved women still find themselves quietly aching in solitude, unsure why they feel so empty. Because what they are living is not their essence, but their persona, the social mask Jung described as the individual's system of adaptation to, or the manner he assumes in dealing with the world. The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, 1959. The persona helps us function in society, but if we cling to it for too long, we forget the face beneath it. And then one day, the shadow rises. Jung described the shadow as the rejected, suppressed, and unacceptable aspects of the human soul. It's where our repressed anger, denied envy, condemned sensuality, and silenced wildness live. For women, the shadow is often packed with emotions labeled too much, too sensitive, too strong, too independent, too emotional. To be loved, many women learn to hide their darkness until it becomes too large, too powerful, and erupts in crisis. It might come as an inexplicable depression, an inner tension within a perfect relationship, or a breakdown after a dazzling success. Because, as Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When the shadow goes unrecognized, it controls us from the dark. The real journey begins when a woman no longer fears her shadow, but learns to dialogue with it. This is when she begins to allow herself to feel anger without guilt, to acknowledge her desire without shame, to say no, to not want, to withdraw from roles she once believed were her destiny. A woman undergoing psychological awakening will have days of upheaval, when she is no longer who she was, but does not yet know who she is. This is the in-between of transformation, where masks fall, relationships shift, and the inner world becomes a construction site in chaos. But it is also the moment a new self begins to breathe. The truth is, the darkness is not the enemy, it is the guide. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Collected Works of C.G. Jung, Volume 13. It is by stepping into the very places we fear most, where we feel not good enough, unlovable, too much, that we unlock wholeness. And the miracle is, when a woman dares to accept her shadow, she also unleashes a true life force. She becomes deeper, more compassionate, more powerful, and radiant in a way that can't be learned or faked. I remember a woman once shared with me, she was a perfect wife, always gentle, always proper, always putting others first. But after a sudden divorce, she spiraled into panic and began therapy. Through that process, she faced a painful truth. She had never lived for herself. She learned to journal, to go alone into the forest, to try painting, to scream, to cry. And finally, she said, "I don't know who this woman is, but she feels more alive than ever." That was her real self, long hidden under the shadow, now being released layer by layer. When a woman moves beyond her shadow and masks, she doesn't become a better version to please others. She doesn't become a replica of any ideal archetype. She becomes herself, messy, complex, sometimes unpredictable, but always real. And that truth, once lived, emits an energy that those around her can feel, an unnamed magnetic presence. Not because she is perfect, but because she is honest to the bone. In today's world, where images are meticulously edited, emotions are standardized, and women are constantly told how they should be, this journey of facing the shadow, removing the masks, and choosing oneself is nothing short of revolutionary. A woman who dares to walk into her darkness to reclaim her light is transforming not just her life, but the world around her. And perhaps that is the kind of woman everyone wants to be near. Not because she tries to be loved, but because she has chosen to love the truth of who she is. Number 2, the awakening moment. From suffering to rebirth. And then, when the masks have fallen, when the shadow is no longer avoided but looked straight in the eye, the woman crosses a new threshold, not one of peace, but of the ruins of the old self slowly collapsing. This is the phase Jung never sugarcoated, because the process of individuation does not begin with comfort. It begins with a crisis. The real question now is, have you ever had a fall so deep that it forced you to meet yourself again? For many women, rebirth begins with a psychological shock that feels like it will destroy them. An unexpected divorce, a cold goodbye after years of effort, a betrayal by a friend, or more quietly, a morning when she wakes up and can't find a single reason to get out of bed. What seemed like just feelings touches the root, where every role, every expectation, every habit suddenly feels hollow. In that moment of loss, when all external supports collapse, the deepest self begins to speak. As Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self, the individual who wishes to have an answer to the problem of evil has need, first and foremost, of self-knowledge. In darkness, pain, and evil lies the hidden opportunity to understand oneself. Maybe you've been in that dark room where no one calls, where silence stretches so long you begin to hear your soul. You think you're lonely, but in truth, you're meeting someone important who's been forgotten, you. In Jung's philosophy, this is the starting point of what he called inner alchemy. Not the escape from pain, but the transformation of pain into awakening. Just like classical alchemy turns lead into gold, inner alchemy turns collapse into strength, wounds into doors to the soul. A woman once wrote to the program, sharing that she had lived a proper life, husband, children, a stable job, and a family proud of her. But one morning, after the kids left for school and her husband left for work, she sat down at the breakfast table and burst into tears. Not for any specific reason. She just felt an emptiness so frightening it made her tremble. Not long after, she sank into a deep depression. But instead of taking medication and returning to normal, she began to write. She recorded her hidden feelings, her buried dreams, the times she said yes when she wanted to scream no. And in reading Jung, She came across this line: "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Psychological aspects of the personality. She cried again because, for the first time, her pain was allowed to exist. If you're reading this and your heart tightens, if you're going through something and asking, "Why me?" then maybe this isn't your collapse. Maybe this is your beginning. In Jung's system, the soul does not stay asleep forever. At some point, it will rise and demand to live fully. And often, it chooses to awaken through the touch of pain. What's fascinating is that Jung never encouraged people to move on quickly or to stay positive. He believed true transformation happens when we stay with ourselves through the chaos, through the wreckage, because the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Modern man in search of a soul. To face oneself in the moment of greatest weakness is not defeat. It is the gateway to inner power. An awakened woman is not someone who is always strong. She is someone who knows what it means to fall. She has lain curled up without anyone calling. She has asked for help and received only silence. She has loved others so much she lost herself. But in those unseen nights, she is reborn from the wreckage. Not through rage, but with the quiet commitment. From now on, I will not abandon myself again. Do you remember a moment in your life when you thought you had hit bottom, yet somehow rose again? That was no accident. That was the sacred alchemy Jung described, the transformation that begins not with denial or illusion, but with acceptance of the truth. In the dark, in loneliness, in confusion, your soul is learning to say, "I am mine." It's ironic how many believe an attractive woman is one who never breaks down, never cries, never shows weakness. But those who have shattered, who have dared to sit alone with their pain, possess a healing energy that can't be faked. They don't speak with words, they speak with presence. No persuasion needed, no effort to impress, because their soul has been melted down and reformed from within. And as Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Letters, Volume 2. The greatest gift of life is not to be loved. It is to become yourself. If you are now in the gray zone, where the old has collapsed and the new has not yet formed, don't rush for an exit. Stay. Feel. Write. Scream if you must. Like a master alchemist at the furnace, you are forging your true self. And in that red fire, a woman is being born. Not from ideals, but from ashes. You are so close. You may not see it yet, but something within you is shifting. This is not the end. This is the beginning of the miracle. Number 3. The rise of the integrated woman, the archetype of the whole feminine. After the storm, while the ashes still smolder in her chest, something strange begins to happen. This woman no longer seeks rescue. She no longer hopes for someone to come and pull her from the abyss. She no longer writes long messages to hold on to fractured relationships. She begins to do something that once felt impossible, and she stays with herself. It's not a dramatic decision, but a quiet, profound shift. A movement from within, as if the soul has stopped pleading and started to speak in its voice. Have you ever felt that? A morning where you no longer care what others think, and all you want is to be honest with your heart. That is the moment a woman begins to rise from within as a new whole, a version of herself that no longer lives to please, but to stay true to her essence. Jung called this the transition from the persona, the social self, to the self, the center of the soul. When a woman sheds the false layers and returns to her core, she is no longer the product of expectation. She is a sovereign being, no longer needing to be loved to feel worthy. She becomes love through the way she exists. A woman like this doesn't need to force strength. She doesn't need to prove anything. She knows when to speak and when to stay silent. She can be soft without being weak, firm without being cruel. Because she has made peace with both her light and her shadow, no longer fragmented, no longer at war with herself. In Jung's world, she is living in a state of psychic integration, a union of the soul. And this is what gives her a quiet magnetism no one can define, but everyone feels. Jung's concepts of anima and animus are especially important to understand this transformation. According to him, within every soul lives an inner opposite. Men carry the feminine archetype anima, while women carry the masculine animus. When a woman hasn't matured her animus, she often seeks men to compensate for a lack of direction, autonomy, or strength. She may fall into unequal relationships where the other person becomes a savior, a guide, or the one who makes her feel valuable. But when the animus is integrated, she no longer needs a father or a hero. She seeks an equal partner. In Ion, Researches into the phenomenology of the self, Jung wrote, "The animus corresponds to the paternal logos, just as the anima corresponds to the maternal eros. This means that when a woman develops her animus, she connects not only to reason, boundaries, and direction, but also learns to think for herself, to make decisions, to chart her course. She no longer needs someone to rescue her from her emotions. She's learned how to stand within them and act not from pain but from awareness." I once met a woman like that. After many years in a marriage where she had to shrink herself to keep the peace, she finally chose to leave, not because she hated her husband, but because she no longer wanted to betray herself. When I asked what gave her the strength, she simply said, "I've been with myself long enough to no longer want to abandon myself." That is the sign of a mature animus. Not loud, not combative, just a clarity so profound that no one can shake it. If you're on this journey, you may feel that everything around you is changing. People who once felt close may now feel distant. Relationships that once felt essential now feel shallow. Don't panic. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It means your frequency is shifting. And when a woman begins to live in truth, anything no longer rooted in truth naturally falls away. The most beautiful part is this: such a woman is not captivating because of her looks or her clever words. She moves people with her presence. In every glance, step, and silence, she carries the grounded strength only someone who has walked through the depths can possess. And that's something you can't fake. Truth doesn't need to shout. It radiates in silence, in the way you hold space for yourself, and from that, hold space for others. Jung once said, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries, psychological aspects of the personality." A whole woman is not someone who has removed her weaknesses or who only keeps the acceptable parts. She is someone who has learned to stand with both her tenderness and her ferocity, her longing and her peace. And because of that, she no longer lives to be chosen. She lives because she has chosen herself. Do you feel something changing in you? Maybe it's not yet clear, but if there's a part of you that has stopped trying to please, that no longer asks for permission to exist, know that the whole woman within you is rising. Not from perfection, but from radical honesty. Not to be loved, but because she has chosen to love herself. And perhaps that is the kind of woman everyone longs to be near. Not because she needs them, but because she has become herself. And that is enough. Number 4, the power of refusal and true magnetism. Why is she desired by everyone? Not all light is dazzling. Some women walk into a room with no glamorous outfit, no loud voice, no effort to attract attention, and yet everyone turns to look. She does nothing dramatic, but her presence alters the space. There is a quiet energy emanating from her, a kind of magnetism no one can explain. And if you look closely, you'll see. It is the power of truth. She is not the most beautiful in the room, not the sweetest, the most agreeable, or the easiest to please. She does not try to be liked, and she certainly does not care about being approved. And that is exactly what sets her apart. Jung never said a woman should abandon her instinct to be loved. He simply pointed out that when we prioritize being loved over being real, we lose ourselves. A whole woman doesn't need to be liked to feel worthy, because as Jung wrote in The Development of Personality, the most important question anyone can ask is, what myth am I living? She doesn't live according to someone else's myth. She lives the story her soul is writing. Have you ever met a woman who doesn't apologize for her emotions? She doesn't hide her tears, doesn't mask her joy or her sorrow. She doesn't flinch when her voice trembles with feeling, and she doesn't fear when her gaze turns cold if needed. That's a sign of integration. She's not acting strong. She's truly been to hell and back. She doesn't pretend to be fine. She's been broken. She's been reborn. And now, the cracks in her are the very places where light gets in. Carl Jung once said, "Only the wounded physician heals." Collected Works, Volume 10. The one who can truly heal is the one who has carried their wounds, and the whole woman is living proof of that. She doesn't use her strength to dominate, but uses her experience to create a safe space. She doesn't need to be better than anyone, doesn't need to win, doesn't need to prove. She doesn't refuse to assert herself. She refuses because she knows the worth of her energy. She knows how to say no. She sets boundaries. She doesn't trade her peace of mind to avoid upsetting others. She doesn't silence her intuition just to keep the peace. And most importantly, she no longer apologizes for her depth. She no longer says, "I know I think too much," or "Sorry if I made you uncomfortable because I'm sensitive." Those were once tickets to be accepted, to be loved. But now she understands, her depth is not a flaw, it is a gift. Real attraction doesn't come from fitting neatly into someone's preferences. It comes from inner wholeness. When a woman becomes the guardian of her boundaries, the universe begins to rearrange itself around her. Those who once exploited her find themselves shut out. Relationships once held together by people-pleasing begin to fade. But in return, she begins to draw in those who have also walked their path. Those with depth, honesty, and a willingness to show up fully. If you are learning to say no, if your hands are still trembling as you practice holding boundaries, then you are getting very close to yourself. And you are becoming dangerous in the most beautiful way. Dangerous to systems that once demanded your smallness. dangerous to the kinds of love that ask for your permission to exist. And above all, you are becoming irresistibly magnetic in a way no one can fake. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." Clarity doesn't come from the gaze of others. It comes from daring to look inward and not turning away. The woman who is desired by everyone isn't chasing anyone's gaze. She has chosen to face herself and to stay. And you, if you are on this path, know this. Every time you say no when you mean no, every time you stop apologizing for your honest emotions, every time you hold yourself back from people-pleasing, you are becoming that woman. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone will like it. But your energy will reach the ones who are meant to feel it. And once you are honest with yourself, the magnetism you radiate will need no explanation. Number 5. Restructuring life and worldview. The magnetism of an honest woman doesn't lie only in the quiet beauty she carries, but in the silent shift happening within her world. Because when a woman dares to set boundaries, dares to reject what no longer aligns with her truth, what follows is not just respect from others, it's a complete restructuring. Her relationships, her way of living, and most profoundly, the belief systems she once held as absolute, all begin to transform. Have you ever felt that once you start living truthfully, the entire world around you starts to change? At first, that change doesn't feel good. It's often painful. Once close, people may begin to drift. Relationships that used to mean everything suddenly feel shallow. Friends stop calling like they used to. Family might say, "You've changed," and they're right, just not in the way they think. The loss is real. Jung understood this deeply. In The Undiscovered Self, he wrote, "To rest in the comfort zone of the collective opinion is to evade the call of individuation." When you begin the path of individuation, you no longer belong to the collective you came from, because your soul is calling you to a new place where honesty matters more than fitting in. I remember a guest once shared on the show that after leaving a 12-year relationship, she felt as though I had just stepped into an empty desert. Not only did she lose her partner, she also drifted apart from mutual friends, from her in-laws, and from the routines that had once defined her life. But in that desert, she began to hear things she had never heard before. Her inner voice. "I'm no longer afraid of silence," she said, "because in it, for the first time, I heard myself." And strangely, when you stop trying to hold on to what no longer fits, you begin to attract what truly does. Not surface-level friendships, not people you have to contort yourself for, but soul-aligned beings. Other women are on the same journey back to themselves. They don't compete. They don't try to win. They don't rush to offer hollow advice. They listen. They show up. They cry with you unashamedly, and they celebrate when you dare to speak your truth. Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, the mysterious way the universe rearranges itself to match your inner frequency when you transform from within. Your old worldview starts to collapse. You stop believing that everything needs to be logically understood to be valid. Intuition sharpens. You dream more, and your dreams stop being chaotic nonsense. They become symbols, messages. Jung believed dreams were the small hidden door in the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul, man and his symbols. A woman amid awakening begins to realize that wisdom is not knowing everything. It's learning to listen to what she doesn't yet understand. She listens to dreams, to her body, to the strange emotions that rise when she enters a room or hears a certain melody. And from there, she starts living by an internal compass, not an external schedule. As she goes deeper, she begins to recognize the archetypes moving within her. When she feels creatively alive, passionate, and sensually grounded, perhaps the lover archetype is activated. When she longs to nurture and support others, the mother is speaking. When she feels drawn to solitude and contemplation, withdrawing from the crowd, it is the wise woman guiding her. These archetypes are no longer molds to conform to, but living languages that help her understand herself and navigate her path. Do you feel like you no longer want to explain your changes? Do you feel yourself starting to trust an intuition you once dismissed? If so, you're very close to the heart of transformation. Don't be afraid if old connections don't understand you. Don't panic if you no longer feel at home in places that once felt familiar. The boredom you feel with the old is a sign that you are stepping into something more real. Jung once said, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." Collected Works, Volume 14. Change doesn't come from forcing yourself to become someone else. It begins with the courage to accept that you've already changed. From there, everything begins to restructure, not around others' expectations, but around the truth within you. A woman who restructures her life doesn't need elaborate plans. She begins by saying yes to what feels right, by rearranging her living space, by stepping outside alone in the early morning, by writing down her dreams, by accepting that she is no longer who she used to be, and letting go of the hope that others will understand. This kind of restructuring isn't an earthquake. It's a quiet series of small, consistent, and irreversible shifts. And that is how she steps into her real life. No longer borrowing beliefs, no longer living someone else's dream. Every step, whether uncertain or alone, is a step toward a world where she is fully herself and needs no permission to be. Number 6. Integrating the inner archetypes. The lover, the mother, the magician, the maiden. And then, when a woman begins to walk to the rhythm of her steps, no longer chasing the applause of others, she enters a deeper layer of the journey. It's no longer about escaping the old. It's about weaving together the fragmented pieces within her into a living, breathing whole. This is no longer the effort to shed old roles, but the conscious choice to live as a full symphony, where every facet of her is acknowledged, listened to, and allowed to coexist without conflict. Jung called this an essential part of the individuation process, the integration of inner archetypes. One mistake many women make, not because they're wrong, but because they've been taught to, is believing they must only be one thing: a good mother, a sweet lover, a dutiful wife, or a modest daughter. They choose a role, often the one most easily loved, most socially accepted, and abandon the rest. But each archetype isn't a fixed box. It's a stream of energy waiting to be activated, fluid, dynamic, and meant to co-create the psychological landscape of a whole human being. Within every woman live multiple archetypes. She might be the lover, sensual, passionate, drawn to beauty, unafraid to seek joy. The mother, nurturing, patient, compassionate, a safe place to land. The magician or wise woman, deeply intuitive, drawn to solitude, with a timeless perspective. And the maiden, free-spirited, curious, creative, and rich with wonder. These archetypes don't cancel each other out. On the contrary, they are all facets of the same being. I once spoke with a woman in her 50s, a former CEO of a major tech company. For years, she embodied the magician and mother archetypes, rational, sharp, tending to both her team and her family. But after a health crisis, she said she began to feel burnt out inside. She started taking belly dance classes. She went to figure drawing sessions. She wrote love letters to herself. She laughed and said, "I realized there's still a playful young girl in me. That part's not dead." And it wasn't. Her lover and maiden archetypes weren't there to replace her previous roles. They were awakening to expand her inner terrain, helping her live more fully, more truthfully. Carl Jung believed psychological freedom doesn't come from cutting away parts we don't need. It comes from allowing all parts of ourselves to coexist, without shame, without war. True maturity doesn't mean choosing one side, but reconciling the opposites within. You can crave sensuality and also enjoy quiet nights reading philosophy. You can nurture your children and also need space where no one needs you. You can laugh loudly at a party and cry quietly to a song at midnight. And most importantly, you don't have to apologize for any of it. If you've ever felt disoriented by inner contradictions, don't worry. That's a good sign. It means your archetypes are waking up, sometimes all at once. Don't rush to choose just one. Start by listening. One day you may feel the urge to create something beautiful. That's the lover guiding you. On another, you crave silence and ancient books. That's the magician whispering. Another day, you may want to lie on the floor and doodle. That's the maiden. And when someone needs, the mother will emerge without being summoned. You are all of these, and you are allowed to be all of them. A woman who integrates her archetypes no longer asks, "Who should I be to be loved?" She asks, "Which part of me needs to come alive today?" That question not only frees her from societal pressure, it unlocks creative energy in art, in work, in how she loves, speaks, and shows up. She no longer tries to be the ideal woman. She becomes a vibrant, uncontainable being, fluid, radiant, and uncaged. Jung wrote a line I deeply love in Memories, Dreams, Reflections. Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. Wholeness doesn't come from slicing away what we dislike. It comes from weaving together everything we are. And you, if you've read this far, pause for just a moment and ask yourself, is there a part of me I've neglected for too long? Is there an archetype knocking, asking to be lived through me again? If the answer is yes, open the door. The path to becoming a whole woman is not a straight line. It is a dance between the parts of your soul. And you are the choreographer. You don't need permission. You don't need perfection. You only need honesty and the courage to be all that you are, without shame. That is true freedom. Perhaps the most beautiful and difficult part of becoming a whole woman is not learning something new, but having the courage to peel away everything that isn't you. The layers of be nice, be agreeable, be lovable, be selfless, once kept you safe, helped you belong. But at some point, they became a prison. And the moment you say enough, not with rage, but with clarity, is the moment you begin to become the woman you want to be, not the woman someone else expected. You don't need to be the woman everyone desires. The truth is, the most deeply loved women are often those who never tried to be. She simply lives so truthfully that she cannot be ignored. And then she begins to attract the right things, the right people, the right love, not because she performs, but because she has chosen herself. There is a strange stillness in the eyes of a woman who knows who she is. When she stands in front of the mirror, not to adjust herself to someone else's preferences, but simply to look and smile, because the woman in the reflection is someone she once dreamed of becoming. Not perfect, not untouched by sadness, not always strong, but honest, whole, and no longer asking for permission to exist. Carl Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Collected Works, Volume 13. You cannot step into the deepest version of yourself by chasing false positivity. You must pass through the dark. You must embrace the pain. You must touch the things you once buried. And it is from that place that you truly begin to shine, not with borrowed brilliance, but with a light kindled from within. If you are somewhere in the middle of this journey, if things feel messy, if you still feel lost or doubtful, you are not alone. We are a generation of women waking up together, laying down old burdens together, choosing ourselves, not out of fear, but out of love. Every time you speak your truth, every time you set a boundary, every time you stop criticizing yourself, that's a small shockwave sent into the collective unconscious, where thousands of other women are waiting for someone to do it first. When one woman heals, she doesn't heal just for herself. She heals for her mother, for her daughter, for those who never had words for their pain. She opens a path, not only for herself, but for those who come after her. Every step you take toward yourself is a step that lights the way for someone else. So even if this road feels lonely, even if you think you're not strong enough, remember this: you are never walking alone. Behind you is a river of women returning to themselves. Ahead of you is the full version of who you are becoming. And in this very moment, all you have to do is choose yourself. And the world will begin to rearrange to reflect that choice. You were never meant to live small. You were never meant to ask for permission. You are here to live truthfully, to live fully. Start now. Start with you.